Hello class and Dr. Gray. Today I want to talk to you about animal testing using cosmetics and medicinal herbs, or just medicine. Once you go to thehumanesociety.org, there's an article called Cosmetics and Medicinal Tests That Use Animals, where it describes what animals are used to test chemicals that they use for humans. They use rabbits, mice, guinea pigs, and field rats, and effects actually from 1 to 3 rabbits per experiment, from 12 to 1,200 mice or rats. The first test that I saw that caught my eye was acute dermotoxicity, where they shaved about 20 rats or about 20 rabbits to test and see what levels of toxicity caused most of them to die 14 days with them being tested. Okay, and another one was the test called carcinogenicity, where they tested 400 mice and they forced them to eat it, and then also killed them 2 years later to test their cells and see if they developed cancer, which is exactly what they're using in our medicine. They're using that in our medicine. This is why they're testing animals, to see if it develops cancer on them, so they'll know whether or not to use it. But the thing is, a way an animal's body is made, it may not have caused cancer with them, but their makeup is completely different from ours. They may have similarities to it, but it's not the same. Another one that really caught my eye, that actually goes along with an article I'm going to tell you about next, is the 1,200 females or pup guinea pigs used for developmental toxicity to see if it caused birth defects. They're killed the day before they are to give birth, and their pups or their children pretty much are taken out of their body to be tested to see if they had a birth defect from being force fed the toxicity development. And now, one reason that spoke to me is because in another article called The 50 Deadly Effects of Animal Uses, there was a drug called diethylene glycol, also known as a wonder drug, that pregnant women took to help with the pain of childbirth. The main reason that the previous article about animals' birth defects caught on to me is that the wonder drug, after use, caused birth defects with the women, and the birth defects came out in the chart that I'm bringing to you right here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but pretty much in this chart, it shows what it did and the levels. At the top, at the very top, it talks about the cardiovascular system and pretty much what happened to the heart. So none of them were affected that way. But then you go down to the central nervous system, where over 8,000 children were given that birth defect, where they had nerves. Their nerves were not connected to one another. But another one that stuck out to me, which was almost the same, was the genital organs, which pretty much meant their genital areas. So when you read about that, it's pretty much another way to show that even though they tested them to see what happened, even though they tested guinea pigs and the birth of their children, it still didn't help because they also had this effect. So that shows you right there that animal testing is not always the good way to go automatically. Now on to the uses of the cosmetic line that use animal testing. The cosmetics are Coty Inc., which you mainly find in New York City. And this line uses pretty much the basics of what I was talking about earlier with the rabbits, guinea pigs, mice, and rats. Also, really big companies that you hear a lot about are Avon and also Johnson & Johnson, who recently just had a recall on baby powder with potential microbial contamination. Now, what microbial contamination is, it refers to the non-intended accidental introduction of infectious materials like bacteria, yeast, mold that you will find in it, mold for your baby powder, and also a virus or fungi. This is fungus. It's pretty much a blend of fungus and mold. This is what they found in the baby powder that you put on you or your child. And they used they used animals to test their products, but yet they had this in it. Now, A few companies that don't use animal testing is Elf. And Elf is actually a company that I use. And they are known, they actually signed a PETA cruelty free pledge. All their products, except for some brushes, are made from animal hair, made for vegans, especially for vegans. And then also Wet and Wild. Now, Wet and Wild, you hear that more on the line of nail polish, but also that's a brand I use. Because in my previous one, I talked about having sensitive skin, and I could only use certain products, and Wet and Wild is actually one of them. Now, with these few things I talked about, I hope someone learned and someone just does not want to use the product anymore based on the things that I've told you about. But thank you. You have a wonderful day.